Hello, I'm Faith Moore, and this is Princess State of Mind, the show where we talk about fiction, fairy tales, and the fairer sex. Today, I want to talk about why I, and so many others, am pro-life, and why I think we're having the wrong conversation about abortion. When I was 8 weeks into my first pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. The experience changed my life. It turned me from an agnostic into a Christian, and it changed my mind about abortion. The recent abortion laws in Georgia and Alabama, which ban abortion after the baby's heartbeat has been detected, have caused an uproar in the pro-choice community. Activists argue that because a fetal heartbeat can be detected as early as 5 to 6 weeks, and because a woman may not yet know that she's pregnant that early on, she could miss the state's window in which to have an abortion. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, tweeted, "If you were sexually assaulted, stress delays cycle, took a morning after pill, throws off cycle, or have an irregular cycle, you'd have no idea that you were pregnant." Actress and pro-choice activist Alyssa Milano suggested a sex strike, saying, "Until women have legal control over our own bodies, we just cannot risk pregnancy." To me, this reaction on the part of pro-choice activists highlights the way in which they misunderstand, willfully or otherwise, the position of pro-life advocates. Slogans like "my body, my choice," and statements like Milano's that women don't have legal control over their own bodies imply that those who oppose abortion do it because they want to limit a woman's freedom to choose what happens to her own body. But this is not the pro-life focus at all. Those of us who oppose abortion aren't advocating for restrictions on what a woman can do with her own body. We're advocating for what can't be done to a child's. If both camps are going to have any kind of meaningful discussion on this topic, we have to define the terms of the argument. #YouKnowMe began trending on Twitter after talk show host Busy Phillips asked women to share their abortion stories with the world. The tweet read, "1 in 4 women have had an abortion. Many people think they don't know someone who has, but #YouKnowMe. So let's do this. If you are also the 1 in 4, let's share it and start to end the shame." Pro-choice women began tweeting their stories. Here are just a few. "I was 16 and the condom broke. There was never any question about what I was going to do, and I have never regretted it. And I know at least 5 other women who also had one and went on to have kids later once they were ready and are amazing moms. My daughter was 1 year old, and I knew financially I couldn't afford another baby. It was the hardest, most painful, and deeply personal decision I've made in my life. The government involving itself in such intensely private matters is ridiculous. I was 21, had a boyfriend who didn't love me and cheated on me. I wasn't ready to be a single mom at such a young age. You know me as a loving mom to a 6-year-old, but I've had an abortion before. I was 23 and in a new relationship with my career on the line. Having the abortion allowed me to continue my career so I could make enough money to support a child and give them a great life." These stories, and the statements of people like Alyssa Milano and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, frame the abortion narrative as one of women's choice. What right does the government have to tell me what I do with my own body? How can you tell me I have to raise another child when I'm poor or uninterested or didn't mean to get pregnant in the first place? It's none of your business, the logic goes, what I do with my body. Framing the discussion that way allows pro-choice advocates to brand pro-life advocates as horrible, women-hating, patriarchal oppressors who would like nothing more than to go back to the days when women didn't even have the vote. This works for pro-choice advocates because women should have autonomy over their own bodies and they are entitled to privacy. But really, this is just a distraction tactic so nobody addresses the real issue at hand. Those are babies we're killing. It's true that babies grow inside of women's bodies. And yes, women have an unfair burden when it comes to creating life. Men get to have an orgasm and walk away. Women have to grow the baby for 9 months. And sometimes, as truly awful as it is, women are raped and become pregnant with their rapist child. But if the baby is in fact a human being, then none of that actually matters when it comes to the question of whether or not abortion should be legal. It may be unfair, it may be a raw deal, but we don't kill people just because life's not fair. You don't get to choose to murder someone because it's convenient for you. A debate is only fair if both sides are debating the same issue. Here's what pro-life advocates want to debate. Is an embryo, or a fetus, a human baby? Usually, pro-choice advocates dodge this question. They tear down pro-life protesters' signs which depict aborted fetuses because they look so much like, well, babies. They try to make a distinction between a fetus that is viable outside the womb and one that isn't, without addressing whether or not the non-viable fetus is in fact human. But recently, former New York City Councilwoman Christine Quinn made a statement that actually sticks to the terms of the debate.
When a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her. It's part of her body.
Of course, those of us who oppose abortion find Quinn's statement ridiculous and kind of frightening. But at least that is the actual crux of the issue. It's not whether or not women have the right to decide what happens to their bodies. They do. It's whether or not an embryo or fetus is a human being. In order for pro-choice advocates to have the courage of their convictions, they, like Quinn, must declare that a fetus is not human. I think Quinn is wrong, but I also think, as ridiculous as this may sound, that she at least is sticking to the terms of the debate. What would happen if we asked her, or any other pro-choice advocate, to prove it? To prove that a pregnancy creates something that is simply a part of a woman's body. And what if then we tried to prove otherwise? Then at least we'd be talking about this, rather than trying to fight back against accusations that actually have nothing at all to do with the point. Busy Phillips asked women to share their abortion stories, their reasons why they are pro-choice. So I asked people to share their reasons for being pro-life. All your answers, and my answer too, had to do with coming to the realization that what a pregnant woman is carrying is in fact a human being. And once you realize that, all that talk about a woman's body and women's autonomy and all the rest don't matter. They're irrelevant. They're not what we're even talking about. Here are a few of the responses I got when I asked why you all are pro-life. I'm pro-life because very early in my mom's pregnancy, the doctor suggested abortion because my mom already had 3 small children under age 5 and was feeling overwhelmed. Thankfully, my parents didn't listen, and here I am. I had my amazing grace moment when I was pregnant with my second child. She was a surprise. When I first found out, I thought I was 7 weeks along. But when I went to the doctor, he questioned my cycle when he gave me an ultrasound. He showed me the monitor. There she was. Head, arms, legs, swimming around. She was about 10 weeks, maybe 11. Suddenly, unbidden, the thought crossed my mind. It's legal to abort this baby. And it's like I finally understood, and I became 100% pro-life from that moment forward. I don't have a personal experience or story, but I am pro-life because I believe in the importance of every individual human life, and I believe that abortion, like slavery, is a person choosing what to do with another person's life. I believe a country that kills its own children cannot stand. I also received a letter from a woman named Nikki, who told me how her own abortion caused her to become pro-life. About 14 or 15 years ago, I was 6 weeks pregnant. I made the choice to have an abortion and went to Planned Parenthood. I opted to take RU486, the abortion pill. I was told and reassured that my baby was nothing more than a clump of cells. I thought that having the abortion early enough would rid myself of the clump of cells, along with my guilt. And although I felt conflicted and heartbroken about my decision, I felt it was the right thing to do given my circumstances at the time. I was told that I would have cramping very similar to a menstrual cramp. I was given Vicodin and told the process of elimination would take about 48 hours. I did bleed as if it was a very heavy period. The cramping was terrible, and I was confined to bed for the weekend. That Monday I went to work. I walked into the bathroom and felt something sliding out of my body. I held my hand out to observe or catch what was falling out of me. It was an embryo, a developing baby still in its embryonic sac and formed as a 6-week embryo. It was not a clump of cells, it was my child. I could see its body, its head, arms, legs, pad-like hands extending into developing fingers. I called Planned Parenthood in absolute distress to tell them what had happened, and they responded, "That's not possible." I argued, What do you mean it's not possible? It just happened to me. This has happened. Again, they retorted, that's not possible. I found a beautiful stone box and wrapped my baby, albeit very tiny, in a small piece of my own childhood security blanket, along with a Mother Mary medallion. I buried her, or him, in a cemetery near my grandfather. Nikki's story really resonated with me because after my miscarriage, I was offered that same pill, the abortion pill, and told that I wouldn't have to look at what came out. I read stories similar to Nikki's of women holding their tiny babies in their hands before flushing them down the toilet. I knew instinctively that I couldn't do that, and I opted for a different procedure called a D&C. This procedure is also done for abortions, but of course, when it's done during an abortion, the baby is still living, whereas mine was not. In fact, I was initially counseled to go to an abortion clinic to have this D&C performed. The idea that I would be sitting there with women whose babies were living inside them was just too much. The baby that I lost was my baby. It had a head, a body, and little arms and legs. I saw them on the ultrasound. And when his heart was beating, the doctor had pointed out the movement of those little arms and said, "Look, he's waving to you." Once the baby was dead, he became the tissue. We're not pro-life because we want to deny women access to health care. We're not pro-life because we want to deny women autonomy over their own bodies. We're not pro-life because we want to punish the victims of rape. We're not pro-life because of women at all. We're pro-life because of the babies. We are pro-life because we believe that when a sperm meets an egg, a new human life begins. And we believe that human life is sacred. And we don't have the right to end it, no matter how inconvenient, traumatic, or difficult it might be. Imagine if we were talking about a child that was already born. A newborn, say, or even a 2-year-old. Imagine that this child's mother was impoverished and couldn't pay for the child's care. Should we kill it? Imagine that the child's mother has gotten pregnant by accident, or even via rape, but gave birth to him anyway. Would we condone it if she then killed him? Imagine that the child's father suddenly left the mother, or turned out to be abusive, or a drunk, or a philanderer, and she was now faced with the prospect of being a single mother. Would it be okay to kill her child then? If what a pregnant woman is carrying is in fact a child, then that child holds just as much intrinsic value as a child that's already been born. And if a baby in the womb is a child, then abortion is the same as child murder. The fact that the baby is inside a woman's body doesn't give anyone the right to commit murder. Is it a baby? That is the debate we ought to be having. If your answer is no, then state your reasons. If it isn't a baby, what is it? When does it become a baby? What was it before? Why does it have DNA unique from its mother? We shouldn't be trying to own each other. We shouldn't be trying to shame each other. We should be talking to each other, but talking about the actual issue at hand. Is an embryo, is a fetus, a baby, a human being? Yes or no? Why or why not? Nothing else is relevant, so nothing else should come to the table. I challenge us all to define the terms of the debate. Not angrily or in some sort of gotcha pithy tweet, but honestly and openly and clearly. Just keep asking this question. Is it a baby?